Hey, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Glad to be back after a great 4th of July week. I should say weekend week, and was on a little hiatus from that. But glad to be back. Got a great couple of guests coming up here. We'll get started. Let's get it. All right. Once again, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Like I said, it was off for like the last week and a half or so without any new episodes. So I hope everyone enjoyed their time off, 4th of July weekend. If you celebrated, you don't. Hopefully everyone has some time off and got to celebrate with some good food, family, and with friends and things like that. But glad to be back. Very excited to have my next guest on, waiting in the wings. Not going to keep her much longer, but you can follow the show on all the podcast platforms, whether it's Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're on BS3 Network, BS3TVLive.com, Roku channel, BS3 Network, Roku channel. Download the app, the BS3 Network app on Roku. You can get it there. You can follow all the shows on the BS3TVLive.com website. You can follow me on also on all social media platforms, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, Facebook. I'm all there as well. We're on iHeartRadio. So wherever you can consume your podcast or wherever you consume social media, I'm all there. The Real Deal with Courtney Harden. Well, let me bring in my guest. If you've seen her on either YouTube or Instagram, she's all over the place. She interviews a lot of different people. And she's a great, content creator, sideline reporter, sports broadcaster, storyteller, journalist for KB Sports Media as well. So I'm welcoming to the show, Lakisha KB Brooks. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For sure. And like I said, you do a little bit of everything. I see you all over the place on social media and, the content, storytelling. So you do excellent work. So I'm glad to get some time with you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's get started. I always ask my first time guest the same question when it went out for the first time. Who was Lakisha KB Brooks? And how did you get into sports media and journalism?
So Lakisha KB Brooks is a small town girl from Valdosta, Georgia. So all the way down right before you get to Florida on I-75. I am someone who loves sports. I am a Lions Viking. So shout out to my Vikings down there in Valdosta.
Okay.
I am a daughter of George and Jeanette. I am someone who's sensitive, emotional. I cry and I love hard. So that's a little bit about me, how I got the name KB. A friend of mine, shout out Aunt Irv, and from Valdosta, gave me that nickname in high school.
Yep. Okay.
So it stuck with me. And anytime I do entertainment or sports broadcasting, I use the name KB. But as you said, my name is Lakisha. If you know me, call me Keisha.
Okay.
If you don't know me, you're probably going to call me Lakisha. So I guess it's everything, Lakisha KB or Keisha, how I got started in sports. So I remember being a kid. My dream was to be on ESPN, to be on Sports Center. There was no such thing as First Take or Cold Pizza at that time. It was just the Sunday Conversation and Sports Center and some other shows. And I used to record the shows and then not listen to audio. And I would actually pretend that I was the broadcaster. So it's always been something that I aspired to do. I went to college for it at Georgia State University here in Atlanta, Georgia, and was doing broadcasting at about 18. I focused more on entertainment. I had my first show called Men versus Women, which is exactly what it sounds like, a relationship show, and wasn't really doing a lot of sports. I was doing more entertainment and did that for a while. But then around 28 or so, wanted to get my master's degree and was supposed to do sports management to understand more about that for broadcasting, but they didn't have the program. So I did just general administration and ended up in corporate doing very corporate-ish stuff. training and development, DEI, all kinds of like not so fun stuff, but we're still doing broadcasting, corporate type of stuff, internal podcasting. I've done a lot of panels. I've done a lot of interviewing on the corporate side, a lot of hosting, emceeing. And about 6 months ago, I said, you know what? I didn't want to do DEI anymore full time as a job or consulting. And I said, I want to get back into what I love, which is broadcasting. And what I love more than anything is sports. So I decided to create KB Sports Media and have been living my dream for the past few months. So that's a little bit about me and KB and a little bit about how I got here in sports journalism.
I like it. I like that journey because everyone has a different journey of how they got into media, sports, and like I said, you were in the corporate world. And now my question would be, I know you said it was just wasn't, I was done with that anymore. Do you miss any parts of that corporate world?
I missed the corporate check.
I
did miss that check, Courtney. I missed that consistent six-figure check. Let me tell you that.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, because I was doing entertainment. I was a promotional model, brand ambassador all through college. So I was already doing like entertainment stuff.
Yeah.
Was working with someone, Tamara Wilson, shout out to her. Working when she was at CNN, she had a show. I was one of the journalists on that. So I was already doing it. Yeah. And then that tenure in corporate was about, you got to get a job. You got to be all fancy and stuff, right? You got to utilize your degrees.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it. But I've got my 3 degrees. I've done my corporate thing. I've got my investment properties. And now it's about living my dream. Now I'm in my 40s. Living my life.
Nothing to be ashamed of about being in your 40s.
Oh no, it's a blessing to me.
It's a blessing because I'm in my mid 40s too, so I'm with you. But not to put the ages on blast or anything like that. But we're older, but we have the wisdom and like you said.
Look at this gray hair. You see this gray hair?
I got it too. All in my beard and everything. Yes. But I know, but that's real though. Like you say just miss those corporate checks. And I think that's actually funny. But no, but it's real. Like you said, and freelancing, I know it has its benefits and challenges. I'm sure we're gonna get into all that too. And you said KB Sports Media 6 months ago now, and now you're living your dream. And I think for a lot of us, especially in this type of space, whether it's podcasting, broadcasting, sports, and there's a lot of freelancers out there too that living their dream. They come from a corporate work, they come from corporate or marketing or something like that. But again, you kind of intertwine a lot of that too, because you say you're doing entertainment. Sports is entertainment as well. So talk about a little bit about the KB Sports Media, starting it and what it entails.
Yeah, so I've had a few companies. I have a company, Brooks Consultants, which is very corporate. We focus on consulting. So I already knew like how to start a business and all that. Right. I've had that for, 12, 13 years. So starting this business, as far as that was concerned, was pretty easy. The logistical part of it. Actually was a good friend of mine who said, hey, instead of you trying to build your portfolio to be a freelancer for ESPN, why don't you focus on building your own media company? I actually didn't even really give it thought to it. I was like, I got to build my portfolio so that I can send my stuff to ESPN or Fox News. And he said, no, build your own thing, build your own legacy, your own brand and media, some people to help you out, get those people that believe in your brand, believe in your vision, and do that. And I did it. And it's been wonderful. I wanted to focus on storytelling. I wanted to focus on those underrepresented stories. So I didn't get away from my DEI, right?
Right, exactly.
But, so I still talk about underrepresented stories. And when I say that, I mean things like I'm doing a bass fishing tournament this weekend. How many people are covering that? You don't see a lot of that, right? Right. So I when I went to TST, which is the soccer tournament, I covered the Speedy Turtles, which was a team out of Atlanta. So they weren't, the biggest name. As a matter of fact, they played Hope Solo in their first game, but I wanted to cover them. I wanted to showcase them. I'm doing a women's sports bar tour. So those underrepresented stories are so imperative and important to me. So that's how I started it, because I said, what is missing in media? How can I utilize my entertainment background, my corporate background, and combine them to really make media better than what it is? And I'm not a content creator, right? But I do create content, right? But I wanted to make sure that people knew that I was about journalism and I was about writing articles and sharing stories that's how I created it on that side. And of course, logistically, we all know how to start a business. All that other like boring business stuff as well.
Now, I like what you said about, not a content creator, but you create content, and
Right.
that's what it's, and then that's what it seems like it's about. I got so many go different avenues. I'm with it with the journalism and everything too. So storytelling and how important it is. It's very important, and I think for and maybe you agree with this. I think sometimes that's missing in sports journalism in itself. I'm sure we could have a whole podcast, hour-long podcast on just sports journalism and everything too. I do have a couple questions on that, but before we get into that, what's your like day-to-day like? I'm sure it varies differently, and even for like, I know like kind of nerd out with the journalism too. Your preparation on like for when you do like games, events. As you said, like you're doing all these different things, but like, what's your preparation like? What's your day-to-day like?
It does vary. So today, obviously, I'm talking to you. I'm meeting my publicist later today. I posted about fantasy football. Thank you, Courtney, for joining my team.
Oh, for sure. I'm always looking for
fantasy football. Join my team. We can talk about that later.
Yes, we'll share that too. So I'll share that around there too. Yes,
I'm always gonna share content. I watch a lot of sports. I was watching Carlos Alcaraz today for tennis for Wimbledon. You got to write a story about that. You got to watch it. See it, gotta, again, it's about the story. You can go and you can look at the facts. Let's say Wimbledon, okay, he had this many aces, unforced errors, this many volleys, blah, blah, blah. But in order to really tell the story, you have to watch it to see the excitement, to see the adrenaline, you have to see all that. So that's whenever I don't have an event. Right. So whenever I have an event, for example, a lot of those days are long. Shout out to Danny Wright for HBCUAC, who allowed me to come and cover 3 of their championships. Those days were long. So you're preparing, you're seeing scripts, you're making sure you can pronounce names correctly. Shout out to Danny for phonetically writing names for me. You got to do that. You have to make sure, who are you interviewing? Who are they? You got, again, watch the games. When I'm interviewing, if I see somebody had a double play, for example, in baseball or softball, I have to have seen that to ask about that. If there was a very tough stretch that somebody got out of that I saw, I got to watch it to ask them questions about that. Those days can get very, very long. But the main thing is preparing. When I do my podcast, ISO play, I have to make sure that I've researched my topics, that I also look at stats. So it can be a very long process. And like you said, because I do so many things in this space, everything's different. When I write an article, it's different than when I'm interviewing someone. When I'm doing an interview like this can be different than when I'm doing an interview at an event, because that's in real time, right? So it's not a lot of preparation. You just got to think on your feet and be able to ask questions based on what you saw. So you have to be someone that can adapt, can adjust, someone that can maneuver and things like that. That's why my corporate background helps, because you talk about change management, you talk about being versatile, you talk about time management, all those soft skills that I was able to learn. I mean, my last job, I was a VP. You have to learn to do a lot and juggle a lot. I was one person on my team as a VP, then I became 2 people, then it became 3 people on my team. And we service 60,000 people. So a lot of those intangibles that I had to do there are translating here so that I'm able to do my day-to-day more effectively.
Right. And I think that's very important. You said the versatility and using that background in your corporate background, you're using it now. You said it just translates right to what you're doing now, as well as a one-woman band. You might as well say, when you're with your media company that you have, is, and you're using that, your skill set, to put out really great things that you're doing with the storytelling and everything too. So, but yeah, so then my next question would be, as you said, how do you find new and unique? You kind of hit on it earlier, of different things you're doing in the media space. How do you find new and unique sports story ideas? Like you say, hey, I'm going to be, hey, nobody's covering this sport, so I'll find this event. Hey, I'll cover it. Get the journalism part of it and the storytelling part of it. That's what, not just congregating, but the journalism part of it. I think that, but how else do you find those unique sports story ideas? Because you have a lot of great ones.
Yeah, well, first I want to say shout out to my new intern Brock, because Brock asked me that same question,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
learning on the place. How do you find these stories,
Oh,
right? So
yeah.
shout out to
Yeah.
Brock for
That's
that.
good.
So a lot of times I have something on my emails, Google Alert, to send me press releases. I put in things like press releases. I put in keywords to Google Alert to see what's going on.
Mm.
I do Google search. The bass fishing one, the gentleman actually happened to go to high school with me.
Ooh.
So
Okay.
he knew what I was
Yeah.
doing. He said, "Hey, I like what you're doing. Can you cover this?" The same way that I initially started my golf stuff with somebody that I interviewed at my former high school. He was playing on the team. Like, so the little things like this, it's networking too. You got to be able to
Yes.
have that relationship with people to be able to do these things. So, like for example, if you know, okay, bowling is not always covered, right? I need to find a bowling tournament. You got to be creative as well and say, what are those unique sports that don't get a lot of attention? And I look at them, or not even unique ones, underrepresented ones like CrossFit. I love CrossFit,
Me
right? The
too. Oh my
CrossFit
goodness.
Games. I used to work for Reebok. So at the time when they were the major sponsor for CrossFit, it was like great. And you had the CrossFit Games and you saw it sometime on ESPN or whatnot, but you didn't really see a lot of it outside of that. Okay, how can I find a box to cover? Or how can I find the CrossFit Games to cover that kind of stuff, right? So you have to be able to be creative and say, hey, how can I cover things outside of basketball, football, soccer, those kind of things, and really think about unique stories, because especially if you're freelancing and things like that, there's going to be a lot of people covering football. I promise you, everybody and their mom is going to be covering football. Everybody's going to be covering basketball. You better be able to cover other stuff. What I love about a lot of the people that I grew up watching on ESPN, for example, they're doing multiple sports. You see them covering, like Chris Fowler, he covers tennis too.
Yeah.
He
On top of
also
college
does
football. Yeah. Yeah.
college football. Chris McKendry, she was literally at an anchor desk
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
when I first started watching her. So if you're not someone that can find unique stories or can do things outside of the norm, you may have a harder time because the competition is that much stiffer for you.
Mhm.
So that's how I do it. I try to find unique stuff. I go Google Alert. I search myself. I expand my network to be able to get people to send me stories as well. And sometimes I'll get people email me and I say, what's the angle? What's the story you have here?
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't know because they're not a journalist, right? But
Yeah.
I try to peel back the onion to see
Mhm.
if there's a unique story there that we can capture.
You using your journalistic skills at the highest level, because as you said, like right, like you said, if someone's gonna ask you to, hey, can you cover this, or do you want to cover this, or anything like that, you're like, okay, what is the angle? What's
Right.
like, what are we now? You're just peeling back. You said you're just peeling back that onion because you want to say, okay, what is that? Because even like when I asked you to come on the show, you said, okay, let's talk real quick. Let's see what's your, and and I'm with you. I'm the same way. Somebody as, hey, you want to be on their show? I'm like, yeah, for sure. Okay, what are we talking about? What we're gonna do? And
Right.
yeah, that's fine. I love that. I love that. I've got a CrossFit. I'm a huge fan of CrossFit. I'm waiting for it.
Really?
Yes, I'm a huge fan since, oh my goodness. I mean, my first CrossFit I watched, it was right before Amy Thornstarter won her first one. I think that was 2012, 2011, somewhere around there. And interesting enough, I remember watching this CrossFit Games, and it was on ESPN, like you said. It was on like late evening. I was like, "What is this?" These people are like, they're lifting weights and racing and all these things and fitness. I'm like, this is interesting. And ever since then, over the last like 13, 14 years, been a big fan. So huge fan of that. And you say when you worked for Reebok, you said you just kind of I'm a huge fan.
Good. No, I love to hear that. There's a lot of people that are fans of it, may have never tried it, and again, you don't see a lot of people saying, I want to cover the CrossFit Games, right? But for me, it's so freaking interesting. Like, it's so exciting. And for those, if you never tried CrossFit, even if you don't like it, just try it once.
Yeah.
And you will see a result of your body. I'm gonna tell you that.
Yep.
It will push your body to the limit you've never experienced before. But I encourage everybody, if you haven't, please just go to a box. They usually let you try a class for free and just see if it's something you like.
Yeah, and I mean, I watch all the covers. I've had a lot of people that do cover in the CrossFit space on the show,
Yeah.
and just like journalists and people like that. And yeah, yes, me and my wife, we love.
Good, good.
We went to Rogue 2 years ago when it was in Texas. So we saw that CrossFit. We saw that it was Strongman and CrossFit on the Rogue Invitational. So we did see that. And yeah, oh, big fan. we
Yay.
we next time we chat, hopefully next time we chat, we'll talk maybe some CrossFit games. And then I'm assuming you still follow it. I'm sure you do.
I do
Yeah.
still follow CrossFit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is amazing. Well, we got some shout outs here. You guys got any questions for, can I call you Keisha, since we got to know each other a
You
little
know,
bit?
Courtney, you're my friend.
Yeah,
See, you
okay. We
know.
friends now. Okay, all right. So we got my cousin Sheila. Thanks for tuning in. Hey
Hey,
fam.
Sheila.
Yeah. We got Nathan Ramasandra from This is Sports Rush. He says, "Hi KB, how are you?"
I'm good. How are
He
you?
says women in sports for sure. He said everyone keep up the amazing work. So yes,
Thank you for the
that
support. We love
that
that.
is he's a definitely a big supporter and everything too. So let's go back to what are some of your favorite and most impactful stories or events or people you have covered so far? You kind of alluded to some of those, but anything that stands out that you've covered, someone that you covered recently or in the past?
Yeah, so obviously I've covered a lot of people in the last few
Yeah,
months,
yeah, right.
and there were a few that stood out. And I want to first talk about a young lady who ran at Dillard. She actually started at a PWI school and was a sprinter. And then she had babies, got married, and now is a field competitor.
Okay.
And her story was so inspiring. And she had, I think, 5 babies. And first of all, looked amazing. I'm like, girl, oh my goodness, she looked
Yeah.
amazing. And she told the story about courage and about being a mother and how she wanted to inspire other women to know that just because you have kids, just because you have a husband, you don't have to lose yourself in what you do.
Right.
And it was such a powerful message because I mean, you could just see the passion. And I don't have kids, and how do you do that? Juggle your kids and your career. And you see this woman with 5 kids, and you see this woman that's also married and really doing it and going to school and really doing what she wants to do and focusing on her dream. For me, it was so impactful. It meant a lot to me. And those are the type of stories that you want to see as well. I've had a lot of interviews where people cry in the interviews. I told you I'm sensitive and emotional. I told you in the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning, yep.
I don't try to do that, but it's when you know that you're touching them on a deeper level. And it's not just about, again, it's about the story. It's not about the sport. I saw a young lady, she had this tattoo on her arm. Now she was like, I ain't gonna cry, because she knew that I had made me cry. I didn't cry. And I said, what's on your tattoo? And she had like a message, and it said message undeliverable. Tattoo. And I said, what is that? She said, it's to my dad who passed away. The message is never gonna go through to him because he passed away. And you could see her tearing up because she didn't expect me to see it. I was gonna, like, I noticed little things, and that's how you do that. And for me, it was like being able to touch people and to be able to share their stories that maybe they didn't know was important to other people. And I lost my mom, so I was like, oh gosh, I need to get off camera before I cry. And to hear her say that, because it was so personal to me as well. And I remember when I used to do journalism 101 at Georgia State, and like, you can't get emotional, you can't be the story kind of thing, right? You can't have those emotions. And I just think that 20 years later, that it's okay to have those emotions as a journalist too. I think it's okay to be relatable. I think it's okay to be authentic and vulnerable for your guest. So those are just 2 examples of stories where those interviews were touching to me. They weren't big name athletes or anything like that. And it's not about that. It's really about the substance of the interview. And that's what I'm most like, versus like, oh, this big press release where I have this big, gold medalist Olympian at this press release, which is great, but not the same as the stories that touch you.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's the human side, the humanization side. And I remember, again, like you, I taken journalism, and they're like, don't want to be part of the story. That's true. But when you have a story like that and that touches from all types of emotions. You just can't help it. It shows how much of a human that we are and how much heart that we have, and we feel for them, and we, and can kind of relate to certain people, certain people who are covering too. So yeah, the humanization side of storytelling, which is sort of missing too in a lot of ways when it comes to that. But I'm glad to see someone like you that's doing that, is touching stories like that, that's why I love doing this podcast, is hearing those types of things and using that, the platform to share those things that people might have missed. As you said, people want to know. Yes, we know the X's and O's. We love those things, as you said, and the athletic abilities and championships and all those. We really enjoy those things, but when you get to hear the other side of that, off the field stories, I think those are very important. So then I think, that's I love that that you cover a lot of those things as well. All right, I just got a couple more. I mean, man, we can talk forever. So, but I just got a couple more just for the time's sake. But we got to do this again for sure. Yes, I really enjoy chatting with you on a lot of different things. But let's get into the sports media and journalism. Let's get into that. I definitely want to ask you about that. What are some of the biggest challenges you feel is facing sports media and journalism today?
Oh, I think in general, I mean, competing against clickbait kind of stuff, stuff that is going to get the clicks and the likes. I remember having a conversation with Tamara, who I shouted out earlier, and I remember before I got back in this, is like, girl, I don't even know how to navigate through this anymore. It's just a lot of, like, we say content creators, which are great because they do very well financially, but it's like when you have people that are spreading fake news or saying things, and you as a real journalist is like, oh my gosh, like fighting against that is difficult, because that's the kind of stuff they're going to run with, or the gossipy kind of stuff and the salacious stuff that they're going to throw a little something extra on that. And you as a real journalist are trying to tell a different type of story or narrative. That's the hardest, because it's social media. So it's like, that's what's out there. That's what people see and whatnot. But we as real, authentic, credible, ethical journalists, we have to continue to do what we do, even if it's not going to get us as many clicks or likes or things like that, because it will come, right? It will come. And I tell you, somebody in corporate, those corporate dollars, they follow the real, they follow authentic, they follow that kind of stuff. So people don't give up. If you are seeing that maybe you're not getting as many likes or shares as the salacious stuff, trust me, the people that should be reading it and you want to read it are definitely out there reading your stuff.
Yeah, like what you said, credible and authentic. That's for sure is some of the biggest challenges, because like even with just print media or social media, that's where the future is going. I know I always have this debate of long form versus short form media type. People do short attention spans. They want, but I think that I think there's room for both. Short term media is great. The reels and things like that. That's fine. Like I said, when I edit this, I'll take a couple clips off that. But to get that real authentic, I think we need more than 5 minutes. We need more than 30 seconds to get this story. And I think long form storytelling and media journalism is it's still there, and it's needed. It's very necessary. So for sure. All right. Well, just two more, and I'll let you go. Since we talked about kind of the challenges, what's your thoughts on the future of sports journalism now that we talked about content creating, and there's a lot of great content creators out there that are putting a lot of good content, but you said, we talk about you talk about clickbait and things like that, people to get a wow factor and those first minutes. But what's your thoughts on the future of sports journalism?
Yeah, the future, I do think we're going to see a lot more merging of content creation, entertainment. And a lot of people say, why is this on ESPN? I'm just like, do you know what ESPN stands for? Literally, the E is entertainment.
The first letter, right? Yes.
Right. And I think that a lot of people get frustrated with ESPN for that reason, but that is where it's going. We're going to see more of that combining stuff. So I have a theater background, so I like to be theatrical, if you will. I like to entertain as well when I'm doing my broadcasting. I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And like I said, I think you're going to see a lot more combining of content creation. So as I said, I'm not a content creator, but I create content because you have to. You have to be able to merge long and short stuff. Like I was consulting one of our clients and we did some broadcasting for their stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you want to have the long stuff, the long interviews that we have, but you have to use those interviews and cut them up for the reels. It's different places that you put them. So we have the article. Their article did well on my site. So people are reading the article. And in the article, you may want to embed maybe a reel, or you want to embed a YouTube video or something like that. On TikTok, you know that you don't want to go past this amount of time. So you're going to see a lot more of that in broadcasters and journalists. Again, depending on where you want to go, if you're a freelancer like us, or you'll say you're a multimedia or you're a mobile journalist, all those different terms, you have to know how to do this stuff. Now, of course, if you have a nice studio job or even a sideline reporter, that's what you are. That's your main job. You've got your contract. Great. You don't have to worry about that as much. But when you're in a position like us as freelancers and things like that, you have to be able to know how to do all that stuff as well. You're also going to see a lot of less bulky equipment. Like I use my phone. People are like, oh my God, girl, what camera is that? Girl, it is an iPhone 16 Pro. That's what it is.
Yep.
So you're going to see a lot more of that as well. People using their cell phones. And I have this really cool little tripod thing that people, it's just like a little rig, just something, of Amazon. You're seeing a lot more of that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see the emergence of more entertainment and content creation combined. You're going to see a lot more mobile journalists who are seeing that they can do well on their own. And with that, you're going to see people using things like cell phones and other just smaller things where now everyone has the ability to be a journalist, which I think is also sometimes bad because we see clickbait stuff, but I think it's also great that people have the opportunity to be their own journalists and to share their own stories in their own language and their own tongue. I think that is powerful. And it's not about competition per se. It's about how can you collaborate to make this stuff better, because there's enough room at the table, I think, for everybody. You just have to figure out how can you make your stuff unique? How can you make it so that people are interested in it so you can do it? I created mine focusing on storytelling, underrepresented stories. Someone can do the same thing, but find a different angle in it. So those are, I think, we're going to see the future in sports broadcasting or just journalism in general.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's it's great, like you said, because of the content creators that are in the space of just journalism in general. You're right. They find their own lanes, and then they and then a lot of this stuff is really unique. And everything too. And then again, networking, you brought that up again. It's like, that's very important because I always say the same thing too. There's always room at this table for everybody. There's always a different flavor for everybody too. Like you said, we both like CrossFit. So it's, there's a lot of CrossFit YouTubers and journalists and things like that. But there's other different ways to kind of broadcast that too, and use some content and use your social media to broadcast it as well. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to be different in the space. Right. So for sure. All right. Last question is, what is next for KB? Anything you can announce for the rest of the summer and things like that. So what's next for KB? I know you said you got a lot of different events, I'm sure, each and every week, but I'm sure. And where do you find that? Where do you find balance, and if that even is a word?
Balance. Oh wow. Oh yeah. I've always done a lot of things. I don't know about that. So I had my full-time job. I did my consulting business and investment. For real estate at the same time. So I don't know about that. So, for me, I love it. So when you're doing something you love, it's less about work and it's having fun. I love being on camera. When I was 16, I did a pageant and they said, why do you want to be a journalist? And I was like, I'm camera happy. I'm like 16 on stage. And so now I get to be that 16-year-old and do what I love to do. So as far as what's next for us, we have our women's sports bar tour, which I'm super excited about. For me to be able to visit 8 different sports bars that are dedicated to women's sports is going to be phenomenal. There's been a lot of articles on it. You'll see some news clips. but I wanted to give the people an immersive experience, as immersive as I can be, while
Mhm.
actually showing them the atmosphere of it. I actually got an email from one of our places we're going to visit. I don't want to say where because we haven't announced it yet,
Okay.
but she did say that they would like us to come visit when they're going to have about 650 people there. And I want people to know what this atmosphere feels like to be in
Mhm.
this women's sports bar. I want them to see the food. I want them to see the menu. I want them to see me try the food and give real feedback. That's what we want people to have an experience. We're going to make it into an 8-part series. We're going to showcase it in 2026. We're going to give behind the scenes stuff. I want people to understand that there is a place for women in sports bars. There's a women for a place for that. It's a women for women's sports to be seen in sports bars. And if I can do it in a unique way, again, we've heard this in articles, but if there's a unique way that I can share this story, which is actually going in the field and trying it, I'm going to do that. And I'm very excited about that. And I want to give a shout out to Nicole Baskin, who is my PR rep, who's going to help me with this, and all of the 8 bars for graciously letting me come into your establishment. Again, we're going to release that July 22nd. It's going to happen. You'll be able to hear those locations. And I want to give a special shout out to Chelsea Fishman from Jolene. She was the first ever sports bar to let me come in there. She has just been amazing. Congratulations to her and her launch. She did it on 4th of July. It was great. It was about 500 people there. Wow. And that goes to show you that the work that Chelsea and all these other amazing, phenomenal women are doing is paying off. And people want to see women's sports. So long-winded answer to what we got coming up next.
All right. Looking forward to it. Like I said, now that we follow each other and that we've networked together, and I'm very excited to get to know you a little bit here, tell your story, and looking forward to, again, of that creation of content. We'll say that. It's not kind of creative. We'll say creation of content. Yes, and the KB Sports Media. Look forward to see how that continue to keep taking off. Like you said, you go from bass fishing to golf tournaments for
soccer,
women's sports bar stories. You do it all. I'm very excited to see your trajectory and continue to keep growing. And looking forward to doing this again, hopefully. And now your podcast family, if you come on more than once, I call it the Real Deal podcast family. So you're part of the family now. So, I really appreciate your time. Thank you again. But before you go, let everyone know where they can follow you, reach out to you, where they can find the content, and you might be at a city near them. You never know. So
yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, but the floor is yours.
No, you're right, because I've been to Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, all in the past few months. So I've been a lot of different places. So I could be near you. So you can find me at KB Sports Chick. That Chick is with an X. You can find me there on TikTok and Instagram. You can find KB Sports Media 2025 on Instagram as well, and KB Sports Media 2025 also on YouTube. And if you go to YouTube, you'll see about 175 or 80 interviews or different pieces of content that I've created over the last few months. So it's a lot of work, and I love every bit of it. And again, just DM me if you want to just talk sports, you want to talk about partnering, working together, collaboration, hit me up.
Yes, hit her up for real. Like you are very active, and I'm glad that we got to do this. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the time, and like I said, hopefully we do this soon. But enjoy the rest of the summer. Look forward to what you got coming up, and hopefully we'll talk soon. All right, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you all so much. See you soon.
All right, thank you. All right, see you soon. Have a good one. All right, that was Lakisha. So again, thank you for doing this. Now it's Keisha, now that I know her a little bit as well. So, but I'm glad to have her come on the show. Follow her, Keisha KB Brooks, again, KB Sports Chicks with an X on Instagram and TikTok, and also KB Sports Media 2025 is her platform where she does all her content and broadcasting and and that too. I've seen their YouTube channel as well. So again, thank you to everyone that tuned in. Always a pleasure. I'm glad to be back after a small hiatus for a couple of weeks, and got more great guests coming up in the next few weeks. Is loaded of guests, so be on the lookout on all the social media platforms and podcast platforms. So until next time, hope everyone enjoys the rest of the week, and be on the lookout for more content. All right, everyone, have a good one. And as always, stay safe. Peace. God bless.